Hello, everybody. Welcome back to History's Historian. My name is Denzel, and today we're going to be going over some tips and tricks for your AP History exam. So, whether it be AP World, AP Euro, or AP United States, this video is just for you. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The exam is just, it's 3 hours, 15 minutes long, and it is two sections. Section one, part A, it has multiple choice, 55 questions in 55 minutes, and it is 40% of the entire exam. Now, section one, part B has the SAQs, short answer questions, which they give you four question sets, right? Four question sets, but you have to answer questions one and two because they're mandatory and they give you stimulus for those ones. Well, you can choose to answer either question three or four. You have to answer three question sets in total. So just answer questions one and two and then choose whether to answer question three or four. You cannot do both three and four. You have to choose whether to do three or four. And it is 40 minutes and 20% of the exam. Now, section two, the document-based question. It is one required question, 1 hour time frame, and 25% of this entire exam. So it's a heavy hitter when it comes to writing. And the long essay question. This this entire part, it usually like the last few minutes of the exam, you aren't really rushing to get it done. But I'll still tell you at the end my tips for this. It'll still help you for it. And there are four prompts to choose from, and it is 40 minutes and 15% of the exam. So now let's go to the multiple choice tips and tricks. Now, as you're going to see, it's 55 minutes, 55 questions. You get 1 minute per question. So just you should be fine. If anything, if your teacher has made you take tests in where there is less time than there is questions, then you should be fine. If not, then my advice for you is to try and do some multiple choice practices, but give yourself less time than there are questions on your practice, right? That way it conditions you for like in case you're running out of time to answer questions a bit more fast. Now, all the questions are made into small groups with stimulus, and the stimulus can either be images, cartoons, or excerpts, right? So, with that being said, what I say for you is to read each source or title for each stimulus because the source and title gives you a really good example as to what time period or what event or what anything the stimulus has come from. So just look out for that. And of course, the variant stimulus that are all over the multiple choice is what each set of questions that the stimulus is attached to will be based on. So just take that into consideration. And I'm going to show you an example of a question set. This is from a 2017 AP World practice exam. All right. And I will put that in the link of the description of this video. And I'll put the answers for these questions in the description of this video. But I'll also say them over here. But I'll also say them on video as well. So what I want you to do is pause the video right now and try to answer these questions to the best of your ability. And little tip, once again, like I said, read the source. The source for this is Jean Froissart, French chronicler, late 1300s. It should give you a clue as to what time period and what place this was written in. So, Western Europe in the 1300s. What was going on in Western Europe in the 1300s? You probably know. If not, it's your chance to try and restudy. But still, just take the chance, try and see if you can answer these. And yeah, I'll see you guys when you come back from that. And welcome back. And the answers for these questions are D, B, and C in that order. All right, D, B, and C. So now let us get to the short answer questions. Now, this is the most confusing one that I worded on the very second slide of this video. So bear with me. We're going to get through this. So the SAQ, like I said, it's 20% of the exam, 40 minutes for three sets of questions. there are two mandatory question sets with stimulus, and there is one question that you get to choose from, question three or question four. Now, my advice to you is read the darn question and then answer the darn question. Right? Look for what they want you to answer and answer it within the first sentence. All right. Then you want to give a little bit of elaboration. All right. It's always just answer and then elaboration with a little bit of examples in it if they call for it, if anything. All right. And that's the little acronym I left for you down there, ACE, which is answer the question, cite examples, and elaborate. Right. And at most, your SAQ should be 3 to 4 sentences long. For me, at most, three. All right. I have never not really met anyone who has put 4 sentence SAQs. Okay. My entire thing is nail it in 3 sentences and you're good because they should give you the point for it. And now we're going to show you an example. Here it is. These are the first 2 questions. These 2 are the mandatory ones. Again, I took this off the 2017 AP World Practice Exam. And of course, it has stimulus, and you just go through it like normal. And for these ones with stimulus, what I say is write according to the source. Put according to the source in there. Make sure that you do. If you don't, then, I mean, yeah, if you don't, my best advice is put it in there. Put according to the source. That's my best advice for you. It might change, it might not, but my best advice for you for now is put it in there. Now, this is where it says choose either question 3 or question 4. Now, like it says, choose either. Do not do both. All right? Do not do both question sets. Okay? I am strictly saying this. Do not do both. You will not have the time to answer both. And also, why would you answer both? So, my best advice for you for when it comes to choosing either question 3 or 4, the one that you know the most about. Pick the one that you know the most about. All right? So just read through the questions in the set and choose which one you know about. So, for example, like, oh, yeah, I know about Judaism and Christianity in the periods of 600 BCE and 600 CE. Or, like, hey, I know the similarity between art and architecture and how the elites used them in 1450 to 1750. If you know either one of those, for example, then go to the question set that talks about it. Okay? It's plain and simple. Plain and simple. Now, oh boy, this is oh oh boy, this is the this is the heavy hitter. Here we go. The DBQ. This one you will be fighting tooth and nail to answer. It is one question prompt, and it is mandatory. You must answer it. There is no choice. You have to answer this one. But I'm going to help you. Don't worry. I'm going to help you. And I'm going to give you a sneak peek at to what it's like for the DBQ. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, the DBQ. It is 25% of the exam. So, in writing terms, it is the heaviest of hitters. Okay? And you have an entire hour time frame that they give you to write it. 15 of those minutes you should be using for planning. However, if you already know how to write a DBQ, then that entire 15-minute planning period should actually be reduced to at most 10, or at most about like 9 or 8 minutes. Then, what I want you to do over that planning period is this: look over your sources and organize them. All right, look over all your sources and organize them. All right, my suggestion for you: source as many documents as you possibly can. I do know that they sometimes do give a minimum as to how many documents you can source. And I know that Heimler says it. So if you want, go watch Heimler's video about DBQs and it'll help you out a lot. And this is just the bare minimum that I've been able to put on a slide. But yeah, my best advice, source as many documents as you possibly can. And if anything, try sourcing all of them. It will work in your favor, especially if you know how to source them properly. Now, the formula for a DBQ that I'm going to give you is this. All right. It's your thesis and prior to statement, and then paragraphs 2 and 3 are just special long SAQs. Right? Both of them are just special long SAQs. And then paragraph 4 is your analysis. And you're probably wondering, what's the thesis and prior to statement? And what's the analysis? Well, the thesis statement is basically answering your entire question, basically answering the question within one sentence, right? That's in the thesis, answering the entire question within one sentence. And in that sentence, you must put time and you must put place, right? You must put time and place of what the prompt is talking about. For example, if it's talking about the French Revolution, you have to just say during the 18th century in France, like during 18th century in Europe, boom, you're done. I'm so sorry if I got the century wrong, by the way. But yeah, boom, you're done. That that is literally what you just need to do to include time and place. And the prior to statement talks about what happened to lead up to or what happened before the event that is being mentioned in the prompt. Right? So for example, if you're talking about, for example, for my AP United States history kids, yeah, this little shout out goes to you guys. Yeah. If you're talking about the Civil War, talk about the entire tensions of sectionalism that have been going on. For example, Missouri Compromise is a must. All right, Missouri Compromise is a must if you're talking about this. Then talk about how the Mexican American War gave us more land, which also made a lot more tensions. Then, of course, talk about Bleeding Kansas, and then talk about the election of 1860. All right, talk about that. Talk about all of those stuff, which talks about tension, and that should be able to lead into a segue into the Civil War. Right? That information should be able to help. Information in the prior two should be able to help you into segueing into maybe the effects of the Civil War, or maybe like the beginning of the Civil War, or anything of the sort. So that's thesis two and prior to statement. Now the analysis is basically what happens after. So you just basically restate your answer to the question that you put in the thesis. You just exclude time and place, and then you put all the events that are going to be that have happened after it. Basically saying, "Oh, this entire event would cause blah 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 and such, which would end up leading to blah blah blah, which in turn blah 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 blah." Boom. You're done. You're good. That's that's how it is. That's how the analysis works. If anything, I should try to give better examples for the analysis later on in my content, but this this is it, right? Now, I'm also just going to let you know this. You get 7 sources. They give you 7 sources for the DBQ. That's all they give you. 7 sources and a prompt, right? 7 sources and a prompt. That's all they give you. So, let's go a little bit more in depth about organizing and sourcing the documents. Now, in that planning period, that entire 15 minutes that you're going to be using up, that entire planning period is crucial because this is you basically giving the bare bone structure of your essay. Right? This entire planning period, you're putting in your mind and you're writing down on paper the bare structure of your essay without it all being written, of course. So, what you have to do is categorize the documents via these categories: social, political, religious, intellectual, technological, and economic. A little acronym for it that I like is called SPRITE because that's how I spelled it. That's how I put it in this PowerPoint. The acronym for it is SPRITE. And this is going to help you organize which documents are going to go into which paragraph. All right. So, for example, the social documents can all be grouped together. The documents that are more religious can be grouped together. The intellectual documents can be grouped together, so on and so forth. Then, what you're going to want to do is categorize each document, whether it's based on historical context, intended audience, point of view, or purpose. So, let me just say this right now to you. Every document can be any of these, all right? All the 7 documents can be any of these. You just have to find the connection. All right? It can be any of these. You just have to establish the connection for it. All right? And so historical context basically means it gives context to as to what things were like at the time, right? Like as to like what a person's certain view was at the time or something or whatnot. Intended audience is basically who was the document or who was the document intended for? Who was reading the document? Who was seeing the document? What was audience was this intended for? And what was and why was it intended for that audience? Then you have point of view. Basically, this goes more hand in hand with documents that are like talking about like journal entries or like and whatnot. But it's always about a person's point of view on an opinion or on an event. So that's easily packed down. And finally, purpose. Basically, it means what is the purpose of the document? Why is it existing? What was it made for? Or what is it doing in the context of the essay or the context of the time period or anything of the sort? And then finally, what you're going to do is give reasoning as to why you chose the document to represent one of the categories of historical context, intended audience, point of view, or purpose, or the little acronym that I put for it, HIP. Now, example sourcing is a book is this was based off of a DBQ that I wrote for for my AP history teacher, and one of them and the entire prompt was based on African countries and how they were able to move independently during the Cold War. And so the little one of the sourcings that I did was based off of a document. It was a document of a book. It was an excerpt of a book written by a political philosopher. And so I have my phone with me and I have the exact wording right here. And so it is a book written by a political philosopher, and I put the name. I didn't put the name on the slide, unfortunately, but a book written by a political philosopher provides historical context for the protests against Western imperial oppression. Once again, I forgot to put the author's name. The author's name was, they gave only the last name, and the author's last name was Fannin. So do with that information what you will. But the entire thing that I put was a book written by political philosopher Fannin provides historical context for the protests against Western imperial oppression. And what I did also was at the very end over here, I put in parentheses Doc 4 HC, which basically stands for Document 4 Historical Context. So whenever you're sourcing the documents, put a little parentheses at the end where, in fact, let me annotate right here. There we go. Because I can annotate on this because this is Zoom. All right. So put, yep, Doc 4 and then historical, and I can context. There we go. Let's also add Fannin's name in here too. So Fannin. There we go. I don't know if it showed up on screen for you, but I'm using Zoom for this entire video. So yeah, I hope it showed up for you guys. But nonetheless, let me trash this, clear all drawings. And okay, now let's head into the example. Now, I didn't give you all the sources because I would be such a madman if I put all the sources on like separate slides. All right. And I know that you're watching this in a bit of a rush, so I'm not going to just dump all of the sources onto you like that. But we're just going to do one source together. All right. So, this source, anonymous parody of the Lord's Prayer, a traditional Christian prayer that circulated in France during the War of the Spanish Succession, 1701 to 1714, late in Louis the XIV's reign. Now, this DBQ that I took this document from, this is from an AP Euro DBQ. So for my AP Euro kids, this one is for you. All right. So we're going to source this one together. Now, already off the bat, anonymous parody of the Lord's Prayer, a traditional Christian prayer. So already off the bat, let's read it too. All right. Our Father at Versailles, your name is no longer hallowed. Your kingdom is a shambles. Your will is no longer done. Give us the bread that we lack. May our enemies forgive our blunders. Save us for Chamallow and Le Maintenant. I'm sorry. Every time I read this, it gets funnier. But yeah, and it gives you a little asterisk as to show who's who. And Chamelin is the finance minister and war minister in the later part of Louis XIV's reign, and La Maintenant is second wife of Louis XIV. Now, already off the bat, we can kind of put this as social, right? Because this is being distributed to the people, right? This entire parody, it says it circulated in France during the War of the Spanish Succession, so obviously the people are going to be reading this, and most of the French people would probably be agreeing with this because Louis XIV was an absolutist, and many people didn't like absolutists at that time, right? They weren't able to really speak out against them, but many people did not like absolutists at that time. So, with that being said, we've categorized this as social. And now we can categorize this as either historical context, intended audience, POV, or purpose. Let's go with point of view. Now, already off the bat, we can already tell that this person is taking an anti-absolutist stance. And basically, the entire sourcing for it would just be a anonymous parody of the Lord's Prayer during the War of the Spanish Succession. Provides the point of view of someone who does not like the absolutist principles of King Louis XIV. Or it could be purpose, and it could be the purpose of mocking the king's power, or the mocking the king's entire mocking the entire king's power, or anything of the sort. It gives it anything would work. Anything in the terms of historical context, intended audience, point of view, or purpose. Either one of them work. You just have to establish that connection, all right? So remember, it's on you to establish that connection, all right? It's on you, right? And of course, I have faith in you to do that. So trust me. But yeah, but this was from a DBQ in where the prompt was to evaluate it was something about King Louis XIV and absolutism. So the entire essay was about King Louis XIV and about absolutism. Now, here we are. Home stretch, here we go. Writing tips, the long essay questions. Now, my little tip for you is this. After the DBQ, you probably may not have enough time to write the LEQ. All right? You probably may not have enough time to write it. And that's okay. All right? You can't really finish everything on an AP exam. Okay? I'm just going to give you that. You can't really finish everything on an AP exam. But you can try and at least get as much points as you can. That's my advice to you. Okay? So, the LEQ is 15% of the exam. So, out of all the writing, it is kind of it's the lowest part of the writing. And it's 40 minutes for one essay. It's one question that you get from three options or four, it's given whether or not they changed it. And remember this format, all right? Thesis and prior to statement. Uh, then paragraphs 2 and 3 are longer SAQs. This time you don't have any sources, so the entire paragraph is just as if you were answering question 3 or 4 from the SAQ sets. So basically, you just have to go in with this with your own knowledge. And my little tip for this, or my little advice for this, is that the paragraphs for an LEQ, at least 7 sentences. At least 7 sentences. You can't have short paragraphs. That's at least my advice. What I say is at least 7 sentences. If it somehow works for you with less sentences, be my guest. but it is better that, but in my eyes, I have done 7 sentences and it's been better. Yeah, of course, paragraph three is the same as paragraph two, and the analysis is afterwards. And then afterwards, you're done. That's it. All right. And once again, the body paragraphs, you have no sources to go off of. So it is all on you to go to do and write all the information in the paragraphs. Right. And also, I'm going to go back to the DBQ for a second. Uh, Let me just say this for the DBQ. Do not quote your sources. In fact, for any of the writing for the synthesis, uh, for any of your writing for your not synthesis, sorry, I have AP Lang in my mind as well. Um for any of your writing, especially for SAQs for question sets 1 and 2 and for your DBQ, do not quote your sources. All right? If your sources are excerpts or writing, do not quote them. Do not. Don't. Under any circumstances, do not quote any of the sources. Okay? I want you to raise your right hand and say this with me. I will not quote my sources. Say it. Say it. All right? I will not quote my sources. Okay. Good. Thank you. Now let's get back to the LEQ. So, here is an example of the questions that you would choose from. And I'm so sorry, I was wrong. It is 3 questions, not 4, because question 1 is the DBQ, and questions 2, 3, and 4, those are your LEQ questions. I am so sorry. But yeah, for questions 2, 3, and 4, what you have to do is that you pick one. Once again, you only pick one. One and done. You pick one and done. That's it. And since you're probably going to be rushing to choose, just choose which one is the best one for you to write. All right. For example, 2 years ago, I had gotten an essay. I think it was about whether or not the French Revolution, it was evaluating the causes and effects of the French Revolution. Right. That was for LEQ. Mind you, DBQ, I had just rushed and finished writing that one. And so now I only had about 20 minutes left of the entire exam, and I was scared. And so what I ended up doing was choosing the one about the revolutions because I love me some French Revolution. And somehow my hands, still shaking and aching from the DBQ, was able to almost write and almost finish the LEQ. I got up to the analysis. I'm just letting you know that. So trust me, you will be fine. And yeah, so here's some example questions that you can choose from that if you want to do. So what I say is this, choose the question that you feel that you will do the best on. All right. It may have a time period that you know a lot about, but it might be that one specific event that you never were able to get down in your brain. So choose which question you think you can answer the best. All right. And I'm just going to give you guys some final advice. Uh, just going to give you guys some final advice about this. All right. My AP World exam, my first ever AP History exam, right? It it was not perfect. It did, in my eyes, did not really go so well because multiple choice, I did fine. DBQ, I finished and it was flawless. And LEQ, as I already told you, I was so nervous, but I ended up getting to the analysis. The SAQ was a nightmare. All because I forgot about one event. It was because I had not reviewed over one particular event because I believed, it won't be on the exam. Some things will find their way to the exam, even the things you least expect. Right? That's my little tip for you. All right? The thing that you think will be least likely to be on the exam, It's gonna be on there somehow, in some form, whether it be a multiple choice set, whether it be an SAQ stimulus, or whether it be a DBQ topic that's rare, or whether it be an LEQ question that you don't even have to choose because you can choose the one that you feel that you know the most about. But this one was on SAQ number one, and it was about the Tanzimat reforms of the 1800s. I nearly lost my mind when I saw that. Even though it was stimulus and it helps you answer the question, I started short circuiting when I saw that. All right. So let me just tell you, it was crazy. I started short circuiting and I was like, you know what? I'll answer it later. I answered question two and then I went and answered question four. And then I went back and I couldn't think of anything for like a good 5 minutes. It was crazy. It was like absolutely crazy. To this day, I still go back to that exam because they released it online now. Because the College Board every year they always release the previous exams online to give you a sense to like practice. Uh, I always go back to that exact question every single year and wonder what I could have done different. Do I regret that entire exam? No, that entire exam I got a three. I passed. All right. I I didn't do one of the mandatory sets, but I passed. So there's hope. All right. There's hope. If I was able to answer only one of the mandatory questions and one of the other questions on the SAQ, and I did everything else, and I got a three, you're gonna be fine. Right? You're gonna be absolutely fine. Everything's going to be all right. Right. Final advice to you is take some time to relax, rest that brain of yours. Don't spend all of your time cramming and studying all the night before. Take some time to relax, enjoy time with your family. All right. Give some time to yourself to de-stress. So that way, come the day of your test, you're ready to beat this exam. And in July, you'll be ready to see that three, that four, or that five on your computer screen when you go to check for your AP score. All right. So thank you so much. Take care. All right. You have yourself a wonderful. I know that you most likely are watching this video at night. So give yourself a break. Have a good night. Get some good sleep and wake up early so that you can get ready to go to school to take care of that exam. All right. My best wishes to you. Good luck. You can do this. All right. You went through the entire class for this year. This is the last hurdle. You're almost there. This is it. All right. This is where you prove yourself. This is where you show up and show out. And you basically, when the AP graders see your stuff, this is where you wow them. Right. Wow them with your skills that you've built over this year. Right. Just know that I'm sitting and recording this video and after this I'm going to head to bed, but just know that you're going to achieve great things, right? You're going to achieve great things on that exam. So trust me, this is going to be worth it. All right? Take care and yeah, you're going to do amazing. You're going to do great. All right? See ya. And of course, I'm just going to take this line from the Hunger Games. May the odds ever be in your favor.